Of the big four, who's got the heaviest lift tonight?
Heaviest lift, I think probably, if I think setup, most interesting is definitely Google, which I would say, if you look at the relative underperformance versus the market, is really pretty disastrous. I mean, being up 16% with the NASDAQ up 24, when you look what's happening from a digital perspective, I think that from a setup perspective is most intriguing. I think YouTube is going to have fabulous numbers. I think the shortfall that's happened with regards to sports ratings in particular has been a big tailwind. Snap, Twitter have benefited from it. Probably YouTube connected TV the most. We quite frankly were a little surprised the stock didn't even react better when they had reported the second quarter earnings, when CFO Ruth Porat had said, quote unquote, in the last few weeks, search had actually gone positive. So just to contextualize, you got 15, 20% of their business is travel related, and that's down 80 to 85. So to me, putting those kinds of numbers up with that sort of headwind, those are pretty impressive numbers.
Yeah, I mean, given the underperformance that you mentioned in the stock, maybe the bar is kind of low, at least for Alphabet. The others have had huge runs into the prints, not so much for this one.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
In terms of Amazon, you've got a street high target, $4,500. That's a lot to live up to tonight, right? How good does that have to be for Amazon today?
I think Amazon's a little bit tricky. And I would point out, I was hearing a little bit earlier in the show talking about the negative reaction to eBay earnings. You didn't see a good reaction to Etsy, who reported last night as well. So just an overall dynamic where we're definitely, in the short term, more constructive, I'd say, about the ad names, because a lot of the e-commerce companies through COVID have benefited really just not having to spend that much on advertising because the business basically was just finding its way. So by way of comparison, you start to look forward and customer acquisition costs are likely to rise. Now, taking a company like Amazon, marketing is just not that large as a percentage of operating expenses. So I would say that probably not a huge ding to them. I do think they're going to lean in a lot on the fulfillment side. They made that message pretty clear last quarter. And something I'm not hearing talked about enough is UPS and FedEx, just given surge demand, is basically going to upcharge everybody. So that's something that's also a bit of a headwind. And look, to be perfectly honest with you, I have a lot of conviction in my 12-month target of $4,500. But if you had handed me last quarter's press release and I wasn't looking at stock action, you had OI numbers went up by 20%. They did $6 billion versus the street 1.5. So I think that the bar is high. I think it's the most owned name in the space. I think they're really going to have to do something just out of the atmosphere to go ahead and really have a meaningful move higher.
So it sounds to me like you wouldn't be surprised if the stock pulled back.
I don't know if it pulls back, but I think it's going to be hard to see something that's going to cause folks to have a really big, big meaningful shift in their viewpoint about the company. And look, the reality is, it's like, let's just think about e-commerce in general. We probably entered COVID in the US, 14% of retail was e-commerce, probably jumped up to 25 to 30. It's not going back to 14. It's not staying at 25 to 30. A lot of the companies that are in the space, like I mentioned, Etsy and Shopify reported this morning, it's a little bit harder to make a call. Now, in their defense, you've basically also got Prime Day that'll hit in Q4. So that's a nice added additional tailwind. But for my checks on the ad side, I would tell you all the big guys, Walmart, Target, Best Buy, they are all leaning in very, very aggressively. Trying to make a fight of this.
Real quick before we go, a tough environment, obviously, for ads. What should we expect from Facebook?
From Facebook, I think expectations are definitely quite a bit higher, and I think they were really conservative when they set numbers. I would guess basically probably 15 to 16% for the stock to go up. We will get an initial view about 2021 OPEX, which I think is at 26, 27 in print for the street. I think people are braced for that to be a low 30s number. The good thing is IDFA, which we do think will start to become an issue, and it'll be interesting if Apple talks about it tonight, got postponed until 21, right? Apple sort of said coming out in early 21. We do think Facebook will have issues from that, but at least in terms of tonight, Q4 should be great, and we think Q3 will be great.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.